This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is show 374, the October 12th, 2018 edition. It will be a truncated edition, just going to go about half an hour tonight. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you once again in the lobby of the Staybridge Inn and Suites in Vauxhall, London, England, where I have had the pleasure of spending the last few days and coming in once again, helping me out at this unusual time. I have to give many thanks to my friend and co-host. You know him as the People's Champion. You know him as a dual qualifier now for the NHC for next year based on his nice work he did last weekend at the Santa Anita contest. You know him. You love him. JK, Jonathan Kinchin. What's up, my friend?
I need some help, guys. I'm trying to decide. There is a gentleman. I'm at this public library. It's a great new 6-story library. It's got all the beautiful, shiny curves, and it's great art everywhere. It's a really cool library, state-of-the-art stuff. I'm looking out this private study room to a row of computers, just random public computers. And there's a gentleman right here to my left who is, I'm not joking, he is looking at past performances.
Are they DRF PPs though, JK?
They're not. And I'm thinking about going out there and coaching him up a little bit, but he's got a ponytail, so he looks like he means business. I don't know if he wants to I don't know if he wants any advice.
Well, you are Mr. Friday Night Lights. You are the former coach, so you're the right guy to coach him up. We'll put in a quick plug. In addition to the DRF Players Podcast, JK and I also helping out on this brand new DRF Sports Forum podcast. We just finished recording our second one. I've been happy with what we've been coming up with. We've had a nice balance between JK bringing his X's and O's and general perspective of degeneracy, along with Scott Gramling, who is the managing editor of DRF Sports Forum. You can be honest, JK, you've been having fun doing those shows?
No, I have. Scott had a really cool stat today. I liked the 10-point differential stat that he had today. That's a really sharp one. I don't get too involved in the market when I look at sports. You know, obviously with racing, I'm big on looking at the will pays and having an idea of what prices horses are going to go off at and stuff like that. When it comes to sports, I kind of go more with the X's and O's side, and I just try to evaluate which teams I think are really good and have the best chance of performing well. And I kind of let the line be a secondary thought. And like we talked about, I do a lot of teases, so I don't really have to be that right. I just need to know who's good and who's not. And so he had a really good stat. It's always fun to talk football. It's one of the things I miss the most about coaching is just sitting around talking ball and having an opportunity to do that every week has been fun.
Excellent. Yeah, well, we'll get more into that. I'm going to save that topic for that show. But, there is the idea that we're not really betting teams or horses, but we're betting prices. And I do think long term that is not only indubitably true, but a more healthy attitude. You, of course, JK, have in both endeavors seem to be able to pick your way to success, which is not something that works for everybody, but a combination of your skills in handicapping and betting acumen has allowed you to do that. Do you ever consider trying to be a little more value-oriented or mathematical in your approach, or are you just happy the way you are?
Pete, I'm always happy the way that I am. No, I try to create my value through my wager and through the pool that I'm in. So whether it's running winners together, turning a 2-to-1 into a 6-to-1. That's the way that I like to try to find my value, rather than taking, than building my play around an 8-to-1 shot that I feel like is the third or fourth most likely winner. Now, when the 8-to-1 shot becomes the first most likely winner, in my opinion, I'll build around that as well. But I like to try to make my value by running things together.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and I think that reflects your approach in both racing and NFL based on our conversations for the DRF Sports Forum podcast. We'd appreciate it very much if folks go ahead and subscribe to that. Speaking of subscribing to podcasts, the old DRF Players podcast feed that some of you, our most loyal fans, in fact, are listening to on iTunes at this very moment, that old school one is going away. And we are now just going to be part of the main DRF podcast feed. We need you to subscribe to the new feed, because if you're on the old feed, you're not going to get the shows. Now, what I'm going to do to hopefully make this a little bit easier on folks, I'm going to go ahead and pin a tweet that will have links to the correct place to sign up to make sure you get your podcast uninterrupted. I'll also go ahead and slug a link in there to the DRF Sports Forum podcast. We'd appreciate it if you would check us out there, or heck, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. If you're not a football fan, but you like us and you like this show, go ahead and download them anyway. You don't even have to listen. Just download them anyway, just so we can bump up the numbers. If you're a loyal fan, we'd appreciate that. But I think you'll probably be able to get something out of it, even if you're only a little bit of a head faking towards being an NFL fan. But anyway, just a little bit of housekeeping early in the show. I thanked you at the top, JK. You're so flexible this week, recording these shows at these odd times. It's currently about 11:15 at night here at the Staybridge. But it worked out really well, my friend, because without you and your flexibility, I wouldn't have been able to go to Brighton Racecourse yesterday. And due to some tips from friends, including one that came right from Rob Dove, one of the top 10 punters in the UK today, pro punters, that is, managed to, in the 6 races, I think I bet 4 of the 6 races, and in those 2 races, there was a 25-1 shot and a 16-1 shot. It was the best day of racing I've had, JK, since last year's Breeders' Cup. Best day of the year, just messing around, not betting all this much money at Brighton Racecourse with Perrin in tow, and it wouldn't have happened without you. So thank you very much.
That's what I'm here for, Pete. I'm here to serve.
Speaking of bringing Perrin to the racetrack, I when I first pitched the idea to Susan, she was a little skeptical and said, "What are you going to do? You're going to leave our child with random punters and go running around the race course?" And I pointed out, I said, "What are you talking about? She's with me, 30 days during the Saratoga meet. It's not like I just have random people watch her. It's not like I'm sitting there at the paddock bar asking Pipes to babysit for me while I go run around the track. Oh, wait, but there was that one time." And just the look of horror on her face was worth it all. But the fact of the matter is that Pipes did babysit once, and he was fantastic. This is a hidden skill the man has. If this whole betting jockey agent thing doesn't work out, professional child care services professional, I'm telling you.
Austin's always very excited when he sees him.
He's good with the kids. Was he hanging around Keeneland in your adventures this weekend?
He was in the green room, yeah. So he's always a blast.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's talk for a minute about contests. Big news coming out of last weekend. We didn't really fully get an opportunity to touch on it even in our own private conversations. But 2 big winners at Santa Anita. Jim Bennis, getting the job done. Impressive. He had won the Hawthorne Invitational earlier in the year. He'd won the Ultimate Betting Challenge. Wins yet another big money, $3,000 live bankroll contest. Just the new master of Santa Anita. And for the first time, Tony Joe winning a major live bankroll event and doing it with a pretty clever strategy. Did you read my article? Did you see how he got the job done the other day?
You always get mad at me when I tell you that I didn't read it, but because I talk to you, I don't have to read your articles. I talk to you every day.
JK, if you're not reading my stuff, who is? First of all, that's my first comment. And second of all, it's a really good story, and you should check it out. He called it the rabbit and closer strategy. He sort of set the pace, picking winners, building a total on his first ticket, which was up to $11,000 heading into the last race, but he knew that there was likely to be an overlaid long shot in the last race, and he left money on his second ticket to bet that horse aggressively. That horse ends up winning at 23-1, and while 3 other players passed his quote-unquote rabbit ticket in that race, he had more money bet on the horse than any of them, effectively blocking them, and ends up with his second ticket getting him to the winner's circle. Extremely deserved win by Tony Joe out at Santa Anita. What do you think of that strategy, generally speaking?
Oh, I love it. That he's a legend. I probably couldn't do that. I don't know if I have the patience for that. And it's really hard for me to find 23-1 shots, but that's no, it's really, really impressive. You know, like I said, I think that the fact that Tony Joe has been so close in so many contests is a real indication of his quality.
You've talked before about how you think now that he's broken out, or in the past you'd used future tense, when he breaks out, could the potential to do something really special. Well, here's my prediction for the something special that he might do. He will now have 2 entries from the 2 wins at Santa Anita. He had the win in the $500 contest earlier, now the $3,000 contest. I do believe this means he will have 2 tickets at the Pegasus contest live for $1 million bonus. How about Tony Joe to be the first player other than Michael Bachuk at the NHC a few years ago to have a 7-figure score in tournaments? He's certainly drawing live, isn't he?
He'll be the first one to 7 figures in a live money contest for sure.
Right.
If I was in the insurance business and I wrote that policy, I would be a little bit nervous.
All right, that's going to be fun. Check it out. I got some good quotes from Tony coming out of that effort. I want folks to go ahead and check it out. Hey, you didn't do too badly. You end up, as I mentioned at the top of the show, getting your second NHC seat. Of course, that's extra significant, I think, in your case, being the only player to ever put 2 entries in the top 10. Back then, they made one of them finish 11th. You went on to play 1 entry at the final table. Now, thanks to the Jonathan Kinchin rule, one of a couple of Jonathan Kinchin rules out there in life, but this is sort of the main Jonathan Kinchin rule. You'd be able to play those 2 entries through. How much more comfortable are you going to the NHC with the 2 entries as opposed to just 1?
A lot more comfortable, and I'm really excited this year because I had the new discovery last year of just playing all dirt races, and I'm telling you right now, I know I'm going to do it. I'm gonna, you know, they say in football, you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz. I'm going to be blitzing at the Treasure Island. I'm going to play the exact same thing as for my optional races on both tickets. I will split in mandatories just because it'd be stupid not to. If I need to, I will play the same. But I'm excited to do that. I didn't do that the first year I played. I'm gonna load up and I'm gonna try to get 2 to that final cut. And I would rather have 2 to the final cut with a chance to really do something special on the final day than have 1 in the final cut and get 62nd like I did last time.
Interesting. 2 follow-ups on that. 1, you talk about why you'd want to split in mandatory races, not optional. I think I know where you're going with this, but explain it for the uninitiated. And I also want you to underline the fact that if you love something in a mandatory, especially at a price, you would I'm presuming, play it on both.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 650 people and entries in the contest, and every single one of them is playing the mandatory races. So when a horse wins, a lot of people have it. You kind of have to have it if you want to be, if you want to stick around.
Fair enough. So but you are not like, it's not like you wouldn't play the same horse if you love the horse.
No, but there's always that, and I when I say stupid, I mean it. There's always that stupid race at Oaklawn where it's like 15 claimers. They're all shipping from everywhere. And you got in there, there's 14 horses in the field. There's pace, there's closers. You got no idea what's going to happen. I'll split in that race, right? But the other races that I have strong opinions, I'll use the same horses.
And the other thing, just to clarify, you're talking about getting to the semifinal round, as it's known. At that point, I presume you would split and try to catch something to vault you back to the final table, or no?
Yeah, I think so. It just depends on, it depends. If I'm in if I'm in ninth and 10th versus being in 78th and 79th or whatever, 68th and 69th, like those I don't think my strategy would change. It just depends if I love some. If I love stuff, I'll still play it at the same, but I'll also probably try to spread out a little bit and try to catch some things to keep me moving up.
Well, I think that's a great point that you mentioned. I think a lot of people go to a tournament like that and they're thinking about, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And I think that you're very wise to always leave room for the specifics of your opinion to dictate what you do. If you love a bunch of stuff early in the day, keep playing them the same. Try to get 2 to the final table. Divide up there when you're playing for all the money. However, in all likelihood, it feels to me like the right move once you get close is to probably split, just because you'll find some race where you hate a favorite or you have 2 10-to-1s you might be able to play, and then splitting there. But just letting the opinion always be, it sounds so obvious, but you'd be surprised at how in the moment people, I think, don't always do it. Getting back to the old, letting your opinion guide the specifics of your strategy.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, last year I only had one, and I believe that was my first year playing in that contest with just one. A lot less stressful, a lot less paper all over the place, I tell you that much. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, congratulations to you. That's a nice hit. Big contest action coming up this weekend. A couple of events at Keeneland. We've got the Orleans Fall Classic happening, I think, as we speak at this point. What is your plan? Will you be playing at Keeneland on Saturday and Sunday?
I will be Saturday and Sunday. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the $400 contest on Saturday, which is $250 live money, 150 prize pool. You can have up to 3 entries on Saturday, and you play from all over the track. You just holler at Jim Goodman. I think that there's usually a sign up area downstairs. That's definitely, if you're wanting to get into these live money contests, that's a great one to get into. It's great racing. It's a lower buy-in event compared to the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 contests that are available. And then on Sunday is the $3,000 live money contest, where $2,000 of it is bankroll and $1,000 goes to the prize pool. And that one's always a fun contest. And Jim Goodman and the group there at Keeneland always take care of you, put you up in nice accommodations, so it's always fun.
Excellent. Always a strong group of players descending upon the Lexington Oval for that one. I am not going to make it this weekend. I'm keeping my powder dry. Going to come out for the last few days of the week. Stick around for EquestriCon. And following that, of course, the Breeders' Cup. It does look, JK, I had a nice meeting today out at the new At the Races studios. Looks like I will be participating in the At the Races Breeders' Cup coverage, so an extra gig for me. And it sounds like I'm going to be paired, at least in some instances, with your man, Matt Chapman. So that'll be fun.
I'm a big fan of that guy. He's always running around growling and carrying on. I like him.
It's a little different. His style and mine, I wouldn't have been my first thought to put together, but I think maybe that's what'll be so great about it. And heck, the way I look at it, man, if I can get along with you, if I can carry you, I can carry anybody. That's
what I say on my first dates. I always tell people, I talk to this guy PTF all the time.
We've gone off the rails. It didn't take long, this show, to go off the rails. And I certainly didn't mean to impugn Mr. Chapman at all there. I'm very much looking forward to working with him and looking forward to being in Kentucky for a couple of weeks at what should be a lovely time of year. We're going to have tons of Breeders' Cup coverage between now and the event. But rather than delve into that, unless you've had any revelatory thoughts in the last few days, I think we should look ahead to what is a pretty interesting weekend of racing, JK. There's some stakes action at Keeneland, obviously, a couple of stakes at Belmont worthy of talking about, and I'm not sure if they've drawn yet, but I did have at least a quick thought about the big one, the Woodbine International. So we'll start with the Breeders' Cup. Since we had our last show, have you had any other horses you have fallen in with? Any other major thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I don't think anything that's like really jumped off the page at me yet. Nothing, not since we talked last. But I am excited about the QE2. I'm excited about it's one of my favorite races. Excited to watch Rushing Fall in that spot. And so, we're 3 weeks out. So, obviously the Jessamine was run, we filmed this on Wednesday. The Jessamine was run today. And our friends at Ashbrook, you met Jake's friend Bo, right?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if you saw it. You're over there. His filly just ran off the screen in the Jessamine and won the 2 concrete rows. So it looks like Chad's newspaper of record is going to have at least something from over on this side of the pond to contend with in that juvenile turf fillies.
Very interesting. Very interesting. All right, let's start quickly. Canadian International. Not really telling folks anything that you can't see in the paper, but the form lines are a little unusual for Thundering Blue coming off this Swedish race. In fact, I can't remember a horse whose last start was in Sweden in North America. But the running line that jumps out is the race 2 back from York, another track. York typically offers good pointers, being left-handed, to horses who will enjoy running in the USA. The Swedish track was apparently tight like a USA course, though granted, Woodbine not as tight as most North American courses. But this Thundering Blue looks like being very, very difficult for this contingent from North America to run down. It's just a couple of horses in Spring Quality and Johnny Bear, who I'm okay letting beat me against one who's got reasonable form to Roaring Lion 2 races back. Probably going to be short, but it was one that I at least wanted to mention that should be worth keeping an eye on. That if folks got too hung up on the last running line, might not know what to make of it. Did you like anything in there? Did you take a look at any of these Woodbine races?
I don't see figures for Thundering Blue. Obviously, you had pointed out some of the form. What I did notice is that if you look at Timeform US, in his running lines, four of his last 5 races say held up in rear, held up in rear, held up in rear, held up in last. He's going to be pretty far out of it with a rider who obviously isn't that familiar with Woodbine. I would take a chance with the 5 Tis a Slam or the 8 Bandua. Those horses should be forwardly placed. Could slip away there. Obviously, on form and on class, a Thundering Blue sticks out a little bit. But I think you could probably get a little bit cute, a little bit creative with something that's going to be forwardly placed to try to prevent in the event that Thundering Blue is a little bit too far back or has a mistimed ride.
Yeah, I feel like the 1.5 miles and how galloping Woodbine is with the relatively long stretch should make up for it. But I think those horses are definitely worth considering for your exacta, and it certainly wouldn't be crazy to reverse it. How about, while we're talking Woodbine, I do see the Timeform PPs are here. The Grade 1 Taylor. Is there anything in here you're willing to nail your colors to the mast of? I know you've been a big Santa Monica fan, and I suppose you can conjure a little bit of an excuse, at least, with the slow pace last time. What are your thoughts?
Well, she's back to the scene of the crime where she ran well on long on value day, is what I like to call it. Back in June. So obviously she fits in there. Alicia's World. She's always kind of just in the mix. She's won her last 2 races at Monmouth. I would prefer, if I was going to take a chance here, I would prefer to take a chance with Proctor's Ledge a little bit here. I don't think she's run 1.25 miles yet. No, she hasn't. So be interested to see how she handles that. Johnny makes the trip up on Saturday to ride her in this race. And I think she could be one that could be interesting, kind of trying something new for the first time. She's shown her talent down at Saratoga and at Churchill as well. So I think she's one that you want to keep an eye on. But Santa Monica should be tough here. It is Chad, and they are running on the green stuff. and it is a grade 1, and she is a filly. So why wouldn't she win?
I am a big fan of Proctor's Ledge. Do you think it's really just your angle here? It sounds to me, tell me if it's more than this, more than like specific excuses for the last few runs, just a case of, hey, here's one who's super talented, young, still trying something new. Maybe she can get back in touch with that talent, or do you have specific excuses for the last few runs?
I think if you just run through her last 4 races, you can kind of go excuse, right? Distaff Mile, well, not her last 3, Distaff Mile, she won. Just a Game, she got beat by Raving Beauty. That's fair. And it's a flat mile, so maybe that was a little too sharp for her. The Diana, she had some trouble. She got steadied and she lacked room in that spot. And then she ran, she got beat by Sister Charlie and a Raving Beauty again. And then in the Boston Spa at a mile and a 16th, she was chasing that slow pace that Cadera was involved in. Cadera obviously ran well in there, but an Indian Blessing came back and ran well at Keeneland last weekend. So there's excuses in her last 3 that I think you could be willing to give her another shot.
Yeah, I think you can put a line through the last race especially. I'm warming to this idea, JK. I'm going to spend a little bit more time with the race, but I think Proctor's Ledge might be worth a wager in there. While we're talking about Woodbine, let's go ahead and check out the Neerticht, the Grade 2 Turf Sprint. Maybe I'll get some Canadians to nail my pronunciation on that now that I've upset all the people in Kentucky. Did you have anything in here? Anybody you've been waiting on to come back?
Lady Alexandra is I think she's listed in the stake at Belmont too, so I'm not sure where she's going to ride. But the thing that I noticed about her is she ran second. She's who Long on Value beat on Long on Value Day.
Otherwise known as Queen's Plate Day.
Otherwise known. She ran really well. I think that the original thought was that she didn't run well because the clock was not right. I think that Long on Value ran his heart out, but I think that the pace was much faster than the posting was. If you look at Timeform US, there's no pace figures in there, and I think that's why. So I actually think she ran much better in that spot. They tried her on the synthetic, and now she's back to the scene of the crime. I think she could run better in that spot. So I'll take a little bit of a look at Lady Alexandra. And then I've always been a Conquest Panthera fan. I think that horse is probably better sprinting and could be one to pick up the pieces later. But Lady Alexandra got my attention on first glance.
I need to do a little bit more work there. I am pretty sure it's Nearctic, but I like the idea of just making up random pronunciations for stakes races at this point. It's just part of my act, JK.
You're like an English major, aren't you?
At one point I was. It's it was many years ago. I think I'm generally pretty good, but it's just the whole Alcibiades thing. I still haven't lived it down. If you check my private texts and my Twitter, I think I'm going to be hearing about that every year for the next 20 at least. Let's move our tack to Lexington, where you'll be. Rushing Fall, just so good. I was surprised that you weren't as taken with her for the last race as I was. But you know what? The market was, in a funny way, kind of with you. The 6-5 almost felt like there was some suspicion out there that she maybe wasn't as good as she'd looked before. Look, I still think that this is a race that just feels like she is going to win. There's some other nice fillies in here, though. You have the contest to contend with. What's your first gut on how you're going to play this one?
I'm hoping that I like something in that allowance race before the 6 furlong dirt sprint, which is always an area that I like. I'd like to play doubles into Rushing Fall here with a big swing in the Saturday contest. Here's the thing about Rushing Fall is I tried to beat her last time. I thought she was going to be overbet. She was coming in off of a break where she also had that little hiccup where she missed a race in between. She was going at a mile and an eighth. She was going on the soft, and she ran right through every terrible reason that I just named why she wasn't going to run well. Now,
where does that leave us today?
Now you look back, She ran on the soft and the Jessamine, won by 3, and was unbelievably impressive. Then she runs in the Appalachian on the yielding, wins by a length. So she's won twice at Keeneland, and I'm doing the quote fingers, on that sandy turf course. She's run on soft. She's run on yielding. And one of her best races ever was on the rock-hard Del Mar turf course at the Breeders' Cup. I don't care if it's soft, hard, long, short. She is going to absolutely run her best race on this surface with that race to set her up for this one. That 60-day mark for Chad Brown is the dangerous, dangerous mark where his horses run their best race. I think she's going to be extremely tough. The only other horse that I would be interested in is Daddy is a Legend. And I think it's probably declared she doesn't like cutting the ground. I think Rushing Fall is going to be really, really tough.
Do you expect, have you been paying attention to the weather? Well, I will admit I have not. What are you thinking the course condition is going to be?
I looked, it's supposed to, I mean, they've been running. They haven't been off the turf yet, I don't think, at Keeneland. And so they've been running on it. There's been a little bit of rain here and there. There's supposed to be possibly a little bit of rain tonight, but then it looks sunny the next 3 days, but it's not going to be that warm. It's going to cool down a little bit. So I would imagine there'll be like some cut in the ground. I don't think it's going to be soft by any means, or good or yielding. It'll probably come up firm, but there'll be a little cut to it, I would imagine.
So not necessarily a problem for Daddy is a Legend, just she's got to deal with Rushing Fall.
Yeah, just got to deal with her, and Daddy's had a couple shots at her and hasn't been able to get it done. So she beat her in the I don't know if Daddy's ever finished in front of her, honestly. So I think 4 times they've raced against each other, and Rushing Fall's finished in front of her all 4 times. So I think Daddy is talented, and I like Daddy, and I'm going to miss Manny riding Daddy. I think Robbie Alvarado's name.
Interesting. Now, I normally would try to make you go into a little more depth on some of the Keeneland spots, but it's Wednesday night as we're recording this. We just got these PPs. I will give you the opportunity, at a quick look through at the card, did anything else leap out at you, contest-wise or otherwise, that you might want to mention, or should we just head back to New York and look at the 2 graded stakes there before wrapping up this truncated edition of the DRF Players Podcast, letting producer AJ get on with his night and letting me get some sleep?
It's the only stake on Saturday, so it was the only one I had looked at initially. So, we can head up north to New York.
Let's do it. Belmont Park, race 8. We're looking at a 6-furlong turf sprint on the inner for the white hot Clement barn. Lull just leapt off the page at me. I love to see tactical horses who've shown they can finish drawn outside of other speed. That's just a winning race design pattern in my view, and Lull's got it here. I'm probably landing on another sizable favorite once again. Unfortunately, that's sort of where my head's at this week, I guess. But what's your feeling? Are you a Lull fan? Do you have a way to go to potentially oppose her here?
I am. Well, what I did was we talk about Time Form US all the time. Is I like to look at hit that preview arrow to kind of pull out the preview, and you can kind of see a number. You can actually click on each horse, but you can see all of them listed there. What their early number is. It's kind of an assessment of how they think that their previous races, how they've run early, and then their late number. And after I looked through the races, I noticed there's a lot of speed in here. A lot of horses with 1s, but a lot of horses with red early fractions. I felt like they were going to run a little bit. And so I said, let me see who's the best closer. And I looked to find, and the horse with the best late number was Lull.
Yeah.
And she's a forward type. So she's going to avoid all that kind of weird trip situation. She's going to be tactical. She should be able to tuck in a little bit behind some of the other speed. Like you said, she's drawn outside. Joelle is obviously a patient rider. I think she's going to be really tough in here if she gets the right trip. Now, she could get a bad trip, get sucked up into the pace situation, and then there could be a problem. I think I would look for JC Shooting Star with Eric Cancel to come running late. That horse is closed into some blue fractions from time to time and should save ground down on the inside and then tip out and make a run while the other ones are getting tired. But I think Lowell could be tough in here from a class standpoint.
All right, let's move on to the 9th race. We had that question a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, or a couple of shows ago anyway, about somebody asking why you have races for the same division run in different jurisdictions on the same day. We have another 3-year-old turf race for fillies on the same day as the QE2. This one obviously not quite the prestige. It definitely, if they weren't both the same day, maybe you'd have drawn one or two into that grade 1. Just curious what you came up with here for the 9th race at Belmont on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't really feel cheated, right? I think a lot of times in those situations you feel cheated, like, golly, like I wanted that horse to run that race so that they could run together. I don't feel that here. I guess maybe you'd want to see significant form, but maybe last year's significant form. She's obviously been off form to a certain extent. The horse that there's 2 horses that got my attention, but there's one that I'm very interested in. That's Victorine for.
Oh, I can't believe it. We're landing on all the same horses.
For Christophe,
I'll let you go ahead.
Well, I think I have a feeling my reason might be a little bit different than yours. I think yours is going to probably be a top pro punter, top 5 pro punter in the UK Today angle, or something you've heard on that side.
He doesn't watch French races.
Is she runs on soft, good over in France. Then she shows up here. And usually when those Europeans come over here, they come over here for one of 2 reasons, right? It's either because they need Lasix or because they need firmer ground. And she came over and did not get Lasix in her first start. So if that was the reason that she came, so it's clearly not the reason that she came, because she would have got it in her first start. She is getting it now. But she got a yielding surface. And I think that she got what she was trying to get away from. And I'm hopeful that she's going to get something a little bit more firm and actually run the race that she was expected to run previously. I think she could be tough in here.
I'm very interested just in Clement's hands. I mentioned how great the barn's been going. First race, not that bad, but just reasons to improve. Second start in the country, as you put forth, and showed enough closing kick too. I was thinking might be a decent price, though. Maybe both of us landing on her suggests otherwise. You have I know it's not your favorite game, but if you had a wild guess price wise here, what would you come up with? I was thinking it could be square.
Yeah, Altea is going to be bet. Significant form will still be bet. Monte Cristo's coming off the win at Saratoga. Good Things Take Time is a horse that I know that you and I both liked, I believe, in the Lake George. So that horse could take a little bit of money. And that was who I was going to pick if I didn't pick Victorine off of the trip in the stake last time at Saratoga, where she was closing. She was 8th and 8th closing into those blue fractions where Monte Cristo won. So I think I think there's definitely some money. Other horses will take some money, and she could drift up a little bit.
So for you, Good Things Take Time and Victorine will be the focus of your action. Are you actively anti-significant form? Have you just seen enough of her act this year? You mentioned off form. That's certainly fair. I just feel like there's no shot she's going to be the price that she, quote unquote, should be in here. And while maybe, unlike what we had sort of heard her preference was going to be distance-wise, maybe the mile will sharpen her back up, but I'm willing to oppose here, as dangerous as that is anytime you're opposing the always potent Brown Barn.
She'll probably win. But that's what Chad does. He got these good ones. You bet them 4 times in a row. They get beat, and then they come back and they win. Look, I guess you can make excuses if you just kind of work your way down. I did not like the trip that she had in the Belmont Oaks, where, excuse me, where I felt like Irad kind of kept her down in there too long and didn't let her out enough. And then she just didn't run in the Lake Placid on the soft going. So, I mean, yeah, I guess there's a world in which she could run better. I just can't back her at what the price is going to be.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, JK, any other closing thoughts on races from this weekend, your activities or whereabouts, shout-outs, etc.?
Yeah, I want to shout out to the city of Louisville for getting those bird scooters, PTF.
Oh, my goodness. Really?
Yeah.
You got to be in heaven.
Oh, dude, I scootered this morning to lunch, this afternoon. It's like my favorite thing in the world to do. I love it so much.
So funny. I do have some good pictures showing you enjoying life. When JK is happy, the world is happy. So we'll be seeing you in Louisville, Breeders' Cup time, no doubt. Will you take the scooter into the hall at Equestria Cup?
Pete, I'm telling you right now, if those scooters are anywhere near the track, I'm going to reserve one like the entire day. You can lock it for the whole day. It'll probably cost like $40, but that's better than trying to find a cab leaving Churchill. I'm just going to scooter all over the place. It's literally one of the most exciting things in the world to me. I love it. It's so much fun.
So ridiculous. I do. I love that. I don't love them, but I love that you love them. We'll just leave it there. All right. That's it. I said we were going to get out of here early. I already kept us late. Thanks again. Big thanks to AJ for helping us out. I'll be back. Folks are probably like, well, it sounded so good last week. What happened this week? Well, we're sort of back to the old technology. I'll be back in the new studio the next time you hear my voice. We'll be reviewing the races from this weekend, looking ahead to the Breeders' Cup. We should have time for some questions. Feel free. Hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Looms Boldly. He's at UT Big Hair. Or you can email us, podcast@drf.com. Remember, change those feeds. If you need help finding what I'm talking about, you can go to my Twitter. By the time this show goes up, hopefully, I'll have that pinned. We can take care of business there. And that's it. Thanks again, JK. Thanks again, AJ. Thanks most of all to all of you for listening. We will be back next week. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.